Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest today is Francesca Albanese. She is the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the human rights situation in the Palestinian territories, and she joins us from southern Italy. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
In late March, you presented a report entitled Anatomy of a Genocide to the UN Human Rights Council, in which you declared that there are clear indications that Israel has violated 3 of the 5 acts listed under the United Nations Genocide Convention for its war on Gaza. 3 months later, would you give a similar assessment?
Yes, I would, absolutely. In fact, I think that what has happened since I presented my report is a confirmation that my analysis was correct, because I have not only documented facts that were committed and that amount to genocidal acts with the required intent to destroy the people in Gaza in whole or in part, but I also shed light on a very critical point that Israel, throughout this latest assault on Gaza, has never denied the acts committed. It has simply justified them. It has justified them as in compliance with international law, and by doing so, and I will give you some example in a minute. But by doing so, it has completely capsized and distorted critical tenets, basic tenets of international humanitarian law, like the principle of distinctions between civilians and combatants. Everyone has been considered a potential target or Hamas affiliate. It has completely distorted the principle of proportionality, according to which each action which is deemed necessary because of military targets is to be proportionate so as not to cause extreme damage to the civilian population. And also the principle of precautions, according to which civilians must be protected to the largest extent possible. And here it is. Israel has declared safe zones through and through, including recent examples like the killing of over 90 people in Al-Mawasi refugee camp, which was declared a safe zone. And there are dozens of examples like this where Palestinians are bombed and are killed and are maimed in areas that are declared protected areas, so areas of no hostility. Or still, Israel has justified the killing of and the full destruction of hospitals according to the argument that they were used for military purposes without real evidence, or the fact that everyone was considered a human shield, like extending ad infinitum this category. This is what Israel has been doing.
Right, but does it amount to genocide? You know, this is the mother of all crimes. I mean, you described the situation in Gaza. If there is a genocide, it's against the Palestinian people, and we're not seeing the same thing, although there is obviously a lot of violence in the West Bank.
Well, first of all, I think that as the Lemkin Institute has pointed out already a couple of months ago, the risk of genocidal violence expanding to the West Bank and East Jerusalem is there. And it's in plain view, and it seems that people, especially in government officials, prefer to just to be in denial instead of acting, because genocidal statements, genocidal pronouncements have been made against the Palestinians in the West Bank. And also, how do we explain the fact that nearly 600 Palestinians, many of them are children, have been killed in the West Bank in the last 7 months? 9,000 people from the West Bank alone have been arrested and detained, most of them, over 7,200 of them, without charge and without trial in the West Bank and East Jerusalem alone. And again, there is no Hamas military presence. But going back to the point you were making, Mark, considering genocide like the mother of all crimes or the crimes of crimes, we shouldn't be distracted by the emphasis we put on this crime, in the sense that it's very specific, it's very different from the other crimes, but it's still not the most serious of all. There is no hierarchy among atrocity crimes. War crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide are three international crimes with specific characteristics. What characterizes genocide is the fact that criminal acts are committed with intent to destroy a people in total or in part. And in fact, I argue that this is one of the most critical cases of genocide, a tragedy foretold, because the intent to eliminate the Palestinian through all means available, being transferring them or neutralizing them or segregating them to a point where the conditions of life to which they were subjected would be calculated to lead to their destruction. You know that even before the 7th of October, there had been authoritative commentators who had characterized the situation in Gaza as an incremental genocide. So the situation today, meaning the situation in Gaza, cannot be analyzed or qualified otherwise than a genocide. I've not seen a genocide where the intent was so ostentatious and vindicated over and over.
Israel has obviously accused you of bias, so has the US, so have Germany and France, especially because they say that you don't acknowledge what Hamas did on October 7th and that you're giving excuses to what happened that day.
This is so untrue. This is so untrue. And yes, of course, the US and France and Germany were against me, but simply because they are siding with a state which is committing genocide. So while their complicity, it's evident, and I'm talking of the United States, who's providing weapon, political support, and denying the crimes that Israel is committing, even when they are admitted by the very Israelis. So let them be in a state of denial. But I want to clarify a point of contention with the former government of France. I've never downplayed and I've never denied, I've never justified the crimes that Hamas or other Palestinian armed groups have committed on the 7th of October. Rather the contrary. I accused these military actions as war crimes and possibly crimes against humanity. What I said is that history doesn't start on the 7th of October. And Western governments have conveniently turned a blind eye on the horrible situation that Palestinians have been enduring under Israeli rule. How many October 7 have the Palestinians endured? This is something that France and Germany and the US, together with Israel, prefer not to look at. You see, this is being so partial and so biased that doesn't even necessitate a huge explanation. My role as a special rapporteur, as an independent expert of the United Nations, is to look at the facts in their objectivity. But once it's clear where the asymmetry or the imbalance or the violations are, I have to report on them.
Right.
Either they are committed by Hamas or by Israel. And there was no Hamas in 1967, in 1973, or during the first Intifada. Israel has always been a brutal regime against the Palestinians, and violence, unfortunately, generates violence.
Right. I mean, from your reporting, are you also seeing instances of Hamas still committing crime using civilian homes for weapon concealment and so on? I mean, is this also a concern, and are you calling on them also to stop what they're doing?
Absolutely. One of the main requests has been for the liberation of the hostages. But the problem is that the battle, if we want to call it like that, this brutal war is being conducted in a heavily, densely populated urban area. So it's impossible right now to have orderly operations that you would expect in other situations. This is not even a case where two regular armies are confronting each other. So, of course, Hamas has committed crimes, no question about that. And Palestinians have committed acts of violence against the Israelis in the attempt to defend themselves during a decade-long brutal occupation. But the question is, the response to the 7th of October should have been justice, meaning ensuring that the perpetrators who had not been killed already by Israel for the 7th of October attack and violence could be arrested and prosecuted as international law demands. And this applies to both Palestinians and Israelis.
Right. As a conclusion, Francesca, how would you rate the position of the international community on this war? It's quite divided, obviously, but how would you describe it in a few words?
It has created a crisis of unprecedented proportion in the multilateral system, because it's true, the international community is not just divided, is fragmented with opposing political views and interests. I think that what the Atlantic bloc, because eventually it's a part of the Western bloc, is doing is extremely dangerous for the multilateral system, because, again, no one asks Israel not to protect itself, its territory and its citizens, but defending Israel as having a legitimate basis to carry out a lethal war against the Palestinians as a whole. This is something that it's putting a nail in the coffin of international law, because of double standards and because of what it's the extent to which it's proving that international law and multilateralism are ineffective.
Francesca Albanese, I want to thank you very much for appearing here on France 24, and thank you all for watching this show.